Welcome, 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 welcome. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good evening, good night. How are you all? Just checking people. How are you all doing? I'll get started with Minecraft today, and later on we'll have a little visit from Santa Claus. Just gonna read a little story. Oh, I forgot this. I have to use the stream camera. There's always some hair touching my eye. Please, please, please. Move to the side. So, let me start the curse forge and we'll get into it. Sit like a shrimp today. Just relax. Have some coffee from the Yule cup or the Christmas cup. Mistletoes, green colors. Kind of watery. Made it bad today. Bad, bad, bad. Today is the 24th of December 2025. Time is 9:38 a.m. We are doing some Minecraft with the intensity of the Christmas carol in the background. Maybe I should keep this and play it when we read the story. Let's see. too close for comfort. Let's do this. Just have to enjoy that wonderful song there. Let's see, is it too loud? I can take it. I'll increase it on my end, on this end, and I'll decrease it here, this end. Yes, as I was saying to a friend just now, actually, today is Christmas, or as we Norwegians say, Jul. We say Jul, and you all English people say Christmas. Very funny. Big difference. So, since this is perfect. Since it is Christmas, I was thinking about making a Christmas tree. So we won't need any of these things. We just need proper, good old I don't need the armor as well. We'll just be bare bones today. Goggles and everything. Where could we put a little, or well, not a little, but a tree, a Christmas tree? Should we just put it here on our old farm? Hey, Gully, good morning, and Merry Christmas to you. God jul, god jul, god jul. I'll move my microphone over here while I'm clicking. like a rabbit. Rabbit. A rabbit. It's the problem with homophones. It's difficult to pronounce sometimes. Well, it's not exactly a homophone. Oh my lord. How I think I have to have some sort of ADHD, because I was just writing to people on Discord saying good morning and stuff, and while I was doing that I opened Discord. No, I opened Minecraft, and I was so certain that do we have this? I was so certain oh my fucking god. I was so certain I had opened the game, and obviously I had not. You see? I'm a mess. I just have to see something here. So I can hear when a follower joins me now, but not now apparently. Why is that? Oh. Follower. Okay. I just need to add this because there we go. So now I should be hearing, and also here. Okay. So that's my mistake. When I haven't heard followers joining, I just haven't. It wasn't enabled on the other scenes. Okay, before we do this, what does Minecraft think a large area means? So the reason I'm in creative is because I'm going to make a Christmas tree. So I'm just going to see how big is this area, and is it the entire server? No. That's actually very good, so I can use that on my trees here. And I should also say God Jul, as we say here in Norway. We still celebrate Yule. That's what I was just writing to a friend about, which made me forget everything. We still celebrate Yule. Ooh, cool. Look at that. Get some. Let's make a few more. A couple more. Wait, that would probably be bad if they throw each other away. Let's do it like this. Hopefully they don't fly to Kingdom Come. Ooh, they don't. I'm going over to my houses and destroy everything. Yay! Yeah, we still celebrate Yule, or we say Yule to Yule, which is just Merry Christmas. It's a fun way to celebrate things. Because as far as I knew, no, Americans have Christmas Day the 25th. There's something weird about it. I'm not sure. And another thing about American Christmas. It's not a bad thing at all. I'm not criticizing. It's just funny because it's different from what I'm used to. Is that Americans open their presents the 25th at the morning of the 25th. Times it day. And as opposite, and for us, we open presents Christmas Eve, so tonight, the 24th. And it's funny in another way as well, because it logically makes sense, because Santa Claus also comes at the 24th. We get to meet him. He doesn't come down the chimney, he comes knocking at the door. There we go, we have a nice place for the Christmas tree. Let's see. Yeah, so it's actually quite simple. I don't want it to be ugly. It's spruce and spruce leaves. And from this, we just distance ourselves down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I am currently not using any help. So this will be a testament to my own building skills. These leaves, spruce leaves, birch. Okay, spruce is better. So that a good recipe would be like filling in halfway here before we go to the next floor. Yeah. Then it goes out like this. 1, 2, 3. Good, you didn't hear that. And the reason I'm sneezing so much is where I live, the air is so dry, it's so cold and dry that Well, it completely wrecks my nose. Yeah, that's good. What is the sun? So loud sound. Lower it a little bit more, and sounds horrid. How are you? Are you ready to celebrate Christmas? Truly. Oh yeah, yeah. What is this? Yeah, that's good. That's good. You're packing. Oh, there's something wrong here. I think I can fix it. So, I like the bottom. And then I need this part. This part can also be I'll just stick to formula because I think that will work. It won't look worse just because it's the same. Well, maybe. Well, I can make it even longer, so 5, 5, 5. There we go. And you'll also be extended by 1. Much better. And then I extend this part. Yes, and I can have this part here. Now I'm happy. I hope this works how I want it to. One of the hardest things in Minecraft is to build things that look good. I am not good at making things look good. Yes, because this can go out here. Like this. Yes. Now we have a Christmas tree. I can remove this upper part. Yay! Oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree. La 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 la. let's turn on the spring music for Stardew Valley. What about yes, just a lot of winter music for video games. And I hope you're packing everything you need. I hope you're packing everything you need. Okay, I just need to test my volume sometimes, but I can move my mic very close again. Hopefully that works. So, actually I could even do this. That looks better. Nah. Oh, okay. I think I'm just so lazy that I just take everything I have and just put them in. Let's see. Just testing some blocks now. What I was saying is I'm so lazy that I just put things in my bag, and I'm fairly happy with it as it is. Just take a big bunch of clothes and then you have to match. Of course you have to match. That's half the fun. Oh, that's actually cool. We'll have no 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, just have them. I really, when I pack, I just take the best things I have, and then I go. Well, maybe not anymore. I used to be very like, it didn't matter how much, it didn't matter so much what I packed, because I was mostly like, as long as it's comfortable. Oh, that's cool. Fire a bit. We'll see if we find something better for the top. We do have actual candles here though. Which of course won't go to the leaves, which is like, why do you have candles then? It's coming, it's coming. Let's see. I did see a picture here. They had some... No, they don't have string. But they had snow. No, what was he called? I didn't pick them up, okay. Just have to find them again. They look like lanterns, no, candles. Functional blocks, end rod. Nah, can't put them on snow, it's fine. The snow is melting already. No. Brain fart. There we go. So, if I go sort of up like this. Oops. Then down again. There's almost no candles on this side. There we go. And glowstone. Do we have something else fun? Something purple that lights up would be nice. Oh my god. It's an overly decorated tree. It didn't look too good when everything was out. So I'll put the things underneath instead. I hear you, Spidey. Yeah, that's fine. Looks a little bit better. Remove these. There we go. And now we'll need the presents. Ah. So we had to pack them. Oh, that's funny. This is basically how I make presents to my family. Oh my god, have you come here to watch my Christmas tree? Yay! Didn't mute myself, that's good. Okay. We have a little mission as well. And that mission means I need to have a knight. And now there's gonna be some action because I need to set game mode to survival. And kill this dude that's just shooting me outside of the boat. There you go. Zombies! Come here, sit in the boats. Yay! Creeper, do you wanna come join me? Oh god! I didn't know he could explode. Okay, well, it's gonna make this a little bit more difficult. Get in the boats, everyone. And the ones shooting me, I just hide from. Jesus! I can't do it. Well, it's good enough for me now. But where are the shooters? Now I'm gonna sing some Merry Christmas songs. Oh my god! I got netherracks! Oh, this is for you, Cooley. You also got a netherrack. Let's... There we go. You're getting a golden nugget. $1 gaming PC I wanted. I think I'll... What's the time? Yeah. We'll do it early. We'll read the story. And then just play some games after that. I'll just mute, fill my coffee, and I'll be back. Yeah, that was quick. I think I'm gonna just do this. I am quick. I was gonna joke. Inappropriate jokes, always. Christmas Carol texts. Oh, you know what? I can actually just pull it up on stream. I'll still be reading it, of course. So let's get the music, the correct music. So we're reading A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens today. And I just need to lube up my throat a little so I can read. A Christmas Carol in prose, being a ghost story of Christmas by Charles Dickens, with illustrations by John Leach. And it's written here, let's see. We can lower the volume just a tad bit more. There we go. I think that's fine. It shouldn't be too loud for you now. I need my glasses. Obviously, I need my glasses. Text here is so small. Stave 1. Morley's ghost. Morley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was agreed upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Morley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know of my own knowledge that there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Morley was as dead as a doornail. Good start. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor his sole administrator, his sole assign and his sole residual legatee, his sole friend and sole mourner. And even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by the sad event, but that he was an excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral, and solemnized it with an undoubted bargain. The mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I started from. There's no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I am going to relate. If we were not perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there would be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night, in an easterly wind upon his own ramparts, than there would be in any other middle-aged gentleman rashly turning out after dark in a breezy spot, say St. Paul's churchyard for instance, literally to astonish his son's weak mind. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterwards, above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. But he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as a flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his red eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows and his wiry chin he carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him, no wind that blew was bitterer than he. No falling snow was more intent upon his purpose, no pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain and snow and hail and sleet could boast of the advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, they would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master. But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded path of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance, was what the knowing ones call nuts to Scrooge. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy whittle, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts, and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been light all day, and candles were flaring in the windows of the neighboring offices, like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were mere phantoms. To see the dingy cloud come drooping down, obscuring everything, one might have thought that nature lived hard by and was brewing on a large scale. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge has a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept his coal box in his own room, and so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put in his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimidation he had of this approach. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, his nephew of Scrooge, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome. His eyes sparkled and his breath smoked again. Christmas a humbug, Uncle?" said Scrooge's nephew. "You don't mean that, I am sure." "Oh, I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas! What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then," returned the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What right have you to be morose? You're rich enough." Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said "Bah!" again, and followed it up with "Humbug." "Don't be so cross, Uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be?" returned the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas! Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer? A time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you? If I could work my will," said Scrooge indignantly, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried in a stake of holly through his... "Uncle!" pleaded the nephew. "Nephew!" returned the uncle sternly. "Keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine." "Keep it?" repeated Scrooge's nephew. "But you don't keep it?" Let me leave it alone then," said Scrooge. "Much good may it do to you, much good has it ever done you." There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say," returned the nephew. "Christmas among the rest, but I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time when it has come round, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name and origin. If anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, The only time I know of in the long calendar year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, uncle, though it has never put up a scrap of gold, it has done me good, and will do me good. I say, God bless it. The clerk in the tank involuntarily applauded, becoming immediately sensible of the impropriety. He poked the fire and extinguished the last flame. Let me hear another sound from you, said Scrooge, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a speaker, sir, powerful speaker, sir, he added, turning to his nephew. I wonder you don't go into Parliament. Don't be angry, uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow. Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed. He went through the length of expression and said that he would see him in that extremity first. But why? Cried Scrooge's nephew. Why did you get married? Said Scrooge. Because I fell in love. You fell in love, growled Scrooge, as if that was the only thing more ridiculous than Merry Christmas. Good afternoon. Nay, uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. I give it as a reason for not coming now. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends? Good afternoon, said Scrooge. I am sorry all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party, but I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, uncle. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. And a Happy New Year. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. His nephew left the room without an angry word, notwithstanding. He stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially. There's another fellow, muttered Scrooge, who overheard him. My clerk, with 15 shillings a week and a wife and family, talking about Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam. This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands, and bowed to him. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe, said one of the gentlemen, referring to his list. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years, Scrooge replied. He died 7 years ago this very night. We have no doubt his liberality is well represented in his surviving partner, said the gentleman, presenting his credentials. It was, for they had been 2 kindred spirits. Liberality. Scrooge and handed Mrs. Scrooge, said the gentleman. Usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessities. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir. Are there no prisons? Asked Scrooge. Plenty of prisons, said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. And the union workhouses? Demanded Scrooge. Are they still in operation? They are, still, returned the gentleman. I wish I could say they were not. The thread mill and the poor law are in full vigor then, said Scrooge. Both very busy, sir. Oh, I was afraid from what you said at first that something had occurred to stop set them in their useful course, said Scrooge. I'm very glad to hear it. Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind and body to the multitude, returned the gentleman, a few of us are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink, and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt, and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for? Nothing, Scrooge replied. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't marry myself at Christmas. I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that. But you might know it, observed the gentleman. It's not my business, Scrooge returned. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labours with an improved opinion of himself, and in a more facetious temper than was usual with him. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened so that the people ran about with flaring links, professing their services to go before horses in carriages and conduct them on their way. The ancient tower of a church, whose gruff old bell was always peeping down slyly down at Scrooge out of a Gothic window in the wall, became invisible, and struck the hours and quarters in the clouds with tremulous vibrations afterwards, as if its teeth were shattering in its frozen head up there. The cold became intense. In the main street, at the corner of the court, some labourers were repairing the gas pipes, and had lighted a great fire in a brazier, round which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands and winking their eyes before the blaze in a rapture. The water plug being left in solitude, its overflowing suddenly congealed and turned to misanthropic ice. The brightness of the shops were holy sprigs, and berries crackled in the lamp heat of the windows, made pale faces ruddy as they passed. Poulterers and grocers and traders became a splendid joke, a glorious pageant, with which it was next to impossible to believe that such dull principles as bargain and sale had anything to do. The Lord Mayor of the mighty mansion house gave orders to his 50 cooks and butlers to keep Christmas as a Lord Mayor's household should, and even the little tailor, whom he had fined 5 shillings on the previous Monday for being drunk and bloodthirsty in the streets, stirred up tomorrow's pudding in his garret, while his lean wife and the baby sallied out to buy the beef. Foggier yet, and colder, piercing, searching, biting cold, if the good Saint Dunstan had but nipped the evil spirit's nose with a touch of such weather as that, instead of using his familiar weapons, then indeed he would have roared to lusty purpose. The owner of one scant young nose, gnawed and mumbled by the hungry cold, as bones are gnawed by dogs, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol. But at the first sound of "God bless you, merry gentlemen," made nothing dismay. Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy of action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole and the fog an even more congenial forest. At the length of the hour of shutting up, the counting house arrived. With an ill-will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat. "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose," said Scrooge. "If quite convenient, sir." "It's not convenient," said Scrooge, "and it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used I'll be bound." The clerk smiled faintly. "And yet," said Scrooge, "it's not fair. If I was to stop a half crown for it, and yet," said Scrooge, "you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work." The clerk observed that it was only once a year. "A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December," said Scrooge, buttoning his greatcoat to the chin. "But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier morning. Next morning." "Hi to the D2 furry. We're just reading a Christmas Carol." The clerk promised that he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no great coat, went down a slide on Cornhill, at the end of a lane of boys, 20 times in honor of its being Christmas Eve, and then he ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt, to play at Blindman's Buff. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, having read all the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms, in a lowering pile of building up a yard where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide and seek with other houses, and forgotten out of the way again. It was old enough now and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms being all let out as offices. The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, was fain to grope with his hands. The fog and frost so hung about the black old gateway of the house that it seemed as if the genius of the weather sat in mournful meditation on the threshold. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had seen it night and morning during his whole residence in that place. Also that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as any man in London, even including, which is a bold word, the corporation, aldermen and livery. Let it also be borne in mind that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought on Morley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon. And then let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw a knocker without its undergoing any intermediate process of change. Not the knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face, it was not in impenetrable shadow as the other objects in the yard were, but had a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley has used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up on its ghostly forehead. The hair was curiously stirred, as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. That and its livid color made it horrible. But its horror seemed to be in spite of the face and beyond its control, rather than part of its own expression. As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. To say that he had not startled, or that his blood was not conscious of a terrible sensation to which it had been a stranger from infancy, would be untrue. But he put his hand upon the key he had relinquished, turned it sturdily, and walked in and lighted his candle. He did pause with a moment's irresolution before he shut the door, and it did look cautiously behind it first, as if he half expected to be terrified with the sight of Marley's pigtail sticking out in the hall, but there was nothing on the back door except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on, so he said "Pooh, pooh," and closed it with a bang. The sound resounded throughout the house like thunder. Every room above, every cask in the wine merchant's cellar below, appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs, slowly too, trimming his candle as he went. You may talk vaguely about driving a coach and six up a good flight of stairs, or through a bad young act of parliament, but I mean to say you might have got a hearse up that staircase and taken it broadwise with splinter bar towards the wall and door towards the balustrades, and done it easy. There was plenty of width for that, and room to spare, which is perhaps the reason why Scrooge thought that he saw a locomotive hearse going on before him in the gloom. Half a dozen gas lamps out in the street wouldn't have lighted the entry too well, so you may suppose it was pretty dark with Scrooge's dip. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for that. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa, a small fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready, and a little saucepan of gruel. Scrooge had a cold in his head. Upon the hob. Nobody under a bed, nobody in the closet. Yeah, I read that. Attitude that I'll have to reread it. My God. Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in their dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Lumber room as usual. Old fire guard, old shoes, two fish baskets, washing stand on 3 legs, and a poker. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus, secured against his surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. It was a very low fire indeed. Nothing on such a bitter night. He was obliged to sit close to it and brood over it before he could extract the sensation of warmth from such a handful of fuel. The fireplace was an old one, built by some Dutch merchant long ago, and paved all round with quaint Dutch tiles designed to illustrate the scriptures. There were Cains and Abels, Pharaoh's daughters, queens of Sheba, angelic messengers descending through the air on clouds like feather beds. Abraham's, Belshazzar's, apostles running off to sea in butter boats, hundreds of figures to attract his thoughts, and yet that face of Marley, 7 years dead, came to the ancient prophet's rod and swallowed up whole. If each smooth tile had been blank at first, with power to shape some picture from its surface, from the disjointed fragments of his thoughts, there would be a copy of old Marley's head on every one. "Humbug," said Scrooge, and walked across the room. After several turns, he sat down again. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with a strange inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This might have lasted a minute, half a minute, or a minute, but it seemed an hour. The bells ceased as they began, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains. Again. I'll have to microphone. Sorry. I managed to knock the microphone down. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." His color changed, though, when, without a pause, it came through the heavy door and passed into the room. Before his eyes, upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as it cried, "I know him! Marley's ghost!" and fell again. There we have it. Scrooge seeing Marley's ghost. Terrifying picture. The same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual pig waistcoat, tights and boots, the tassels on the latter bristling, like his pigtail, and his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made for Scrooge, observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought it in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him, was looking through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he even believe it now. Though he looked the phantom through and through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its dead cold eyes and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, which the wrapper he had not observed before, he was still incredulous and fought against his senses. "How now?" said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. "What do you want with me?" "Much," Marley's voice, no doubt about it. "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?" said Scrooge, raising his eyes. "You're particular for a shade?" He was going to say to a shade, but substitute this as more appropriate. "In your life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley." Can you sit down?" asked Scrooge, doubtfully looking at him. "I can." "Do it then." Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of it being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it. "You don't believe me," observed the ghost. "I don't," said Scrooge. "What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses?" "I don't know," said Scrooge. "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because," said Scrooge, "a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be a bit of undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart, as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the spectre's voice disturbed the very marrow in his bones. To sit staring at those fixed glazed eyes in silence for a moment would play, Scrooge felt, the very deuce with him. There was something very awful, too, in the spectre's being provided with an infernal atmosphere of his own. Scrooge could not feel it himself, but this was clearly the case, for though the ghost sat perfectly motionless, its hair and skirts and tassels were still agitated as by the hot vapor from an oven. "You see this toothpick?" said Scrooge, returning quickly to the charge, for the reason just assigned, and wishing, though it were only for a second, to divert the vision's stony gaze from himself. "I do," replied the ghost. "You're not looking at it," said Scrooge. "But I see it," said the ghost, notwithstanding. "Well," returned Scrooge, "I have but to swallow this, and be for the rest of my days persecuted by a legion of goblins, all of my own creation. Humbug, I tell you, humbug." At this, the spirit raised a frightful cry, and shook its chain with such a dismal, appalling noise that Scrooge held on tight to his chair to save himself from falling in a swoon. But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage round his head, as if it were too warm to wear indoors, the lower jaw dropped upon his breast. Scrooge fell upon his knees and clasped his hands before his face. "Mercy," he said, "dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?" "Man of worldly mind," replied the ghost, "do you believe in me or not?" "I do," said Scrooge. "I must, but why do spirits walk the earth, and why have they come to me?" "It is required of every man," the ghost returned, "that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world, and woe is me, and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turned to happiness. Again the spectre raised a cry, and shook its chains, and wrung its shadowy hands. "You are fettered," said Scrooge, trembling. "Tell me why." I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link, and yard by yard I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you?" Scrooge trembled more and more. "Oh, would you know," pursued the ghost, "the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and long as his. 7 Christmas Eves ago you labored on it. Since it is a ponderous chain." Scrooge glanced about him on the floor in expectance of finding himself surrounded by some 50 or 60 fathoms of iron cable, but he could see nothing. "Jacob," he said imploringly, "old Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob." "I have none to give," the ghost replied. "It comes from other regions, Ebenezer Scrooge, and is conveyed by other ministers to other kinds of men. Nor can I tell you what I would. A very little more is all permitted to me. I cannot rest, I cannot stay, I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me, in life my spirit never rode beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hall, and weary lives lie before me, weary journeys lie before me." It was a habit with Scrooge, whenever he became thoughtful, to put his hands in his breeches pockets, pondering on what the ghost had said. He did so now, without lifting up his eyes or getting off his knees. "You must have been very slow about it, Jacob," Scrooge observed in a businesslike manner, though with humility and deference. "Slow?" the ghost repeated. 7 years dead," mused Scrooge, "and travelling all the time." "The whole time," said the ghost. "No rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse." "You travel fast," said Scrooge. "On the wings of the wind," replied the ghost. You might have got over a great quantity of ground in 7 years," said Scrooge. The ghost, on hearing this, set up another cry and clanked its chain so hideously in the dead silence of the night that the ward would have been justified in indicting it for a nuisance. "Hello, Faye. I'm just reading A Christmas Carol, so it's just a reading stream right now. Actually, let me just take a breathing break to change it to just chatting, because that's what it is. Or reading, actually. Ooh. was I? I have it. You might have gotten over a great quantity of ground in 7 years, said Scrooge. The ghost, on hearing this, set up another cry and clanked its chain so hideously in the dead of silence of the night that the ward would have been justified in indicting it for a nuisance. Oh, captive, bound and double-ironed, cried the phantom, not to know that ages of incessant labour by immortal creatures, for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which is susceptible is all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit, working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I. You were always a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. Business! Cried the ghost, wringing his hands again. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. It held up its chain at arm's length, as if that were the cause of all its unavailing grief, and flung it heavily upon the ground again. At this time of the rolling year, the spectre said, I suffer most. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down, and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode? Were there no poor homes to which its light would have conducted me? Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly. Hear me, cried the ghost. My time is nearly gone. I will, said Scrooge, but don't be hard upon me. Don't be flowery, Jacob, pray. How is it that I appear before you in a shape that you can see? I may not tell. I have sat invisible beside you many a day. It was not an agreeable idea. Scrooge shivered and wiped the perspiration from his brow. That is no light part of my penance, pursued the ghost. I am here to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping fate. A chance and hope of my procuring, Ebenezer. You were always a good friend to me, said Scrooge. Thank ye. You will be haunted, resumed the ghost, by 3 spirits. Scrooge's countenance fell almost as low as Jacob's had done. Is that the chance you and hope you mentioned, Jacob? He demanded in a faltering voice. It is. I think I'd rather not, said Scrooge. Without their visits, said the ghost, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bells toll 1. I couldn't take them all at once and have it over, Jacob. Couldn't I take them all at once and have it over? Hinted Scrooge. Expect the 2nd on the next night at the same hour, the 3rd upon the next night, when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remembered what has passed between us. When I had said these words, the spectre took its wrapper from the table and bowed it to its head, as before. Scrooge knew that by the smart sound its teeth made, When the jaws were brought together by the bandage, he ventured to raise his eye again and found his supernatural visitor confronting him with an erect attitude, with its chains wound up over and about its arm. The apparition walked backwards from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre had reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which he did. When they were within 2 paces of each other, Marley's ghost held up its hand, warning him to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped. Not so much in obedience as much as in surprise and fear, for on the raising of the hand, he became sensible and confused. Noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentations and regrets, wailing inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge and floated upon the bleak, dark night. Scrooge followed to the window. Desperate in his curiosity, he looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one ghost in a white waistcoat with a monstrous iron safe attached to his ankle, who cried piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant, whom it saw below upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was clearly that they sought to interfere for good in human matters and had lost the power forever. Here we see the spirits, the ghosts. Whether these creatures faded into mist or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell. But they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, and he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable. And being, from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, his glimpse of the invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghosts, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep on the instant. Just to check to see how much it is. Oh, it's so long. Okay, there we go. Check the time. My God, we've been reading an hour. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes, when the chimes of a neighboring church struck the 4 quarters, so he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went from 6 to 7. Hey, 6, 7! And from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12. Then it stopped. 12. It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have gotten into the works. 12? He touched the spring of the repeater to correct the preposterous clock. Its rapid little pulse beat 12. And stopped. "Why, it isn't possible," said Scrooge, "that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun, and this is 12 at noon." The idea being an alarming one, he scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything, and could see very little then. All he could make out was that it was still very foggy and extremely cold, and that there was no noise of people running to and fro and making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if night had beaten off bright day and taken possession of the world. This was a great relief, because 3 days after sight of his first exchange to pay Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge his order, and so forth would have become a mere United States security if there were no days to count by. Scrooge went to bed again, and thought it over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavored not to think, the more he thought. Marley's ghost bothered him exceedingly every time he had resolved within himself, after mature inquiry, that it was all a dream. His mind flew back again like a strong spring released to its first position, and presented the same problem to be worked all through. Was it a dream or not? Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3/4 more. Then he remembered on a sudden that the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved to lie awake until the hour had passed, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he had more than once convinced that he must sunk into a doze unconsciously, and missed the clock. At length it broke upon his listening ear. "Ding dong! A quarter past," said Scrooge, counting. "Ding dong! 1/2 past," said Scrooge. "Ding dong! 1/4 to it," said Scrooge. "Ding dong! The hour itself," said Scrooge triumphantly, and nothing else. He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did with a dull, hollow, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, the curtains at his back, but to those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, starting up into half a recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I am now to you, and I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child, as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view, and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it. The tenderest bloom was on the skin, and the arms were very long and muscular, and the hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were like the upper members bare. It wore a tunic of purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem had its dress trimmed with summer flowers, but the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright clear jet of light, by which all of this was visible, and which doubtless the occasion of its using in its duller moments a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. Even this, though when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality, for as its belt sparkled and glittered now in one part and now in another, and what was light one instant and another time dark, so the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with one arm, now with one leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom, wherein they melted away. And in the very wonder of this, it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. "Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?" Scrooge asked. "I am." The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if being close beside him, it were at a distance. "Who and what are you?" demanded Scrooge. "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" inquired Scrooge, observant of its dwarfish nature. "No, your past." Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him, but he had a special desire to see the spirit in his cap, and begged him to be covered. "What?" exclaimed the ghost. "Would you so soon put out with your worldly hands the light I give? Is it not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap, and force me through whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow?" Scrooge reverently disclaimed all intention to offend, or any knowledge of having wilfully bonneted the spirit at any period of his life. He then made bold to inquire what business brought him here. "Your welfare," said the ghost. Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would have been more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately, "Your reclamation, then, take heed." It put out its strong hand as it spoke, and clasped him gently by the arm. "Rise and walk with me." It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, but that bed was warm and the thermometer was long way below freezing, and that he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and a nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication. "I am a mortal," Scrooge remonstrated, "and liable to fall." "Bear but a touch of my hand there," said the spirit, laying upon his heart, "and you shall be upheld in more than this." As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with him, for it was clear, cold winter day with snow upon the ground. "Good heaven!" said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. "I was bred in this place. I was a boy here." The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Its gentle touch, though it had been light and instantaneous, appeared still present to the old man's sense of feeling. He was conscious of 1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with him, connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten. "Your lip is trembling," said the ghost, "and what is that upon your cheek?" Scrooge muttered with an unusual catching in his voice that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would. You recollect the way?" inquired the spirit. "I remember it," cried Scrooge with fervor. "I could walk it blindfold." "Strange to have forgotten it for so many years," observed the ghost. "Let us go on." They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts, driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits. They shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. "These are but shadows of the things that have been," said the ghost. "They have no consciousness of us." The jocund travellers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did his cold eye glisten, and his heart leap when they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas as they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas. What good had it ever done to him? "The school is not quite deserted," said the ghost. "A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still." Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. They left the high road and by a well-remembered lane, and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick, with a little weathercock surmounted cupola on the roof, and a bell hanging on it. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were little used, their walls were damp and mossy, their windows broken, and their gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the coach houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor was it more retentive of its ancient state within, for entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold and vast. There was an earthly savour in the air, and chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight, and not too much to eat. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them, and disclosed long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. At one of these a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form and wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. Not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and scuffle from the mice behind the panelling, not a drip from the half-thawed waterspout in the dull yard behind, not a sigh among the leafless boughs of one despondent poplar, not the idle swinging of an emptied storehouse door, no, not a clicking in the fire. But it fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence, and gave a freer passage to his tears. The spirit touched him on the arm and pointed to his younger self, intent upon reading. Suddenly a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct, to look at, stood outside the window with an axe stuck in his belt, and leading by the bridle an ass laden with wood. "Why, it's Ali Baba!" Scrooge exclaimed with ecstasy. "It's dear old honest Ali Baba. Yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here alone, all alone, he did come. For the first time, just like that. Poor boy and Valentine. said Scrooge. And his wild brother Orson, there they go. And what's his name who put down in his drawers, asleep at the gate of Damascus? Don't you see him? And the Sultan's groom, turned upside down by the Jinnai? There he is, upon his head. Serve him right. I'm glad of it. What business had he to be married to the princess? To hear Scrooge expending all the earnestness of his nature on such subjects in a most extraordinary voice between laughing and crying, and to see his heightened and excited face would have been a surprise to his business friends in the city indeed. There's the parrot, cried Scrooge. Green body, yellow tail, with a thing like a lettuce growing out of the top of his head. There he is, poor Robin Crusoe, he called him. When he came home again after sailing on the island, poor Robin Crusoe. Where have you been, Robin Crusoe? The man thought he was dreaming, but he wasn't. It was the parrot, you know. There goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek. Hullo, hoop, hullo. Then, with rapidity of transition, very foreign to his usual character, he said, in pity to his former self, poor boy, and cried again. I wish, Scrooge muttered, putting his hand in his pocket and looking about him, after drying his eyes with his cuff. But it's too late now. What's the matter? Asked the spirit. Nothing. Oh, just gotta see. Oh my god. I think it's too long for me. I am going to end it here because my voice is broken already. An hour of reading is probably not too bad, so bad for being me. I'm gonna keep it and keep reading tomorrow and the other days, but my voice is just broken from reading an hour. I'm not used to doing it. I'm not used to talking actually, so. So I'm gonna end the stream as well. Maybe I'll stream later today just for fun. But I don't really have any plans. I'm gonna take it easy. Thank you so much for watching. Cooley, Furry, Faye. And I'll see you all, if you are here, tomorrow. And Cooley, have a nice travel. I know you're gonna travel. Good luck. And I hope you get there in time. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's if you're away for that long.